Story 1. I make approximately $70,000 as a teacher, and about $61,000 if I take the summer off. I live in a high cost of living area, but I am older and had the fortune of buying a house early, opening individual retirement accounts, and contributing to my retirement plan. I also opened investment accounts which have helped immensely. My salary is enough to pay my mortgage and bills. I live a simple life, cook at home, read a lot, walk, and volunteer in my free time. I have not been able to save much in the last couple of years, but I invest what I can. Story 2. I am a sea glass artist from Nebraska, and my husband trains groundhogs for annual festivals. Our budget for a home is $3.5 million. Story 3. I got excited when I finally landed a $98,000 job in information technology. I don't contribute to my 401k retirement plan because I am trying to pay down debt, and I use my spouse's health insurance. My actual take-home pay is $67,000. The rest goes to taxes. We are trying to figure out how to have a child, but I genuinely don't understand how everyone around me is doing that. Daycare prices are very high, and both of us have to work. We share a car since the other one broke down a while ago. I don't understand how people are managing this. Story 4. I am a machine operator. I make $25,000 a year, and the only reason I can afford to live is because my father left me a house with some land when he died. I made a deal with a neighbor who bought almost all the land I had, and I have been getting by mostly because of that deal for the last 3 years. Story 5. I am 34 years old. I do freelance work and live with my parents. Life is difficult, but I am managing mental health challenges, and it is a gradual process. Story 6. I work for a private therapy practice focused on specialized care with a concierge and luxury approach. I earn $55,000, but I can afford everything I need. I am very happy with my job and do not want to leave. I work fully remote and have unlimited paid time off. Our meetings consist of a group of women who collaborate openly, discussing ideas, laughing, and expressing themselves freely. I feel that my opinions and ideas matter. Story 7. Social worker. You have to complete at least 5 to 6 years of education and pay for it. You must be an unpaid intern for at least 2 of those years, not including unpaid internships during undergraduate studies. You are trained in the basics of any bachelor-level degree, as well as in clinical, meso, and macro skills related to social work during your master's degree. Starting salaries are about $50,000 to $60,000 with a master's degree. The average student debt for social workers with a Master of Social Work degree is $70,000. You are the ultimate janitor of capitalism. From street outreach, child protective services, schools, and hospitals to the mental health concerns of the wealthy, you see it all and are expected to fix every broken system. But nobody will pay you to live. Story 8. Bartender, maybe $70,000 after taxes. I definitely do some cost-saving activities. I either cook most of my meals at home or get them free from work. For example, I do not own a car. I do not pay for cable or streaming services. I primarily shop for clothes at thrift stores, and I do most of my grocery shopping at the inexpensive place that is 3 times as far away as my local grocery store. Reducing your spending and consistently saving and investing makes life a lot easier. I have been saving and investing consistently for my entire working life. I find myself in a better financial situation compared to some of my friends who make 2 or 3 times my income. Life gets a lot easier when you own most of your home and have a few $100,000 in your retirement accounts. Story 9. User Experience Designer, $110,000 per year, remote position. I live alone, pay too much for plants, and still think about quitting weekly. Story 10. Occupational therapist. I have moved into management and administration over the last few years and earn between $150,000 and $185,000 a year. I also teach in a master's program on the side. I make more than enough to live a very comfortable life. I cannot say I did it by myself, though. My parents paid for all my schooling and helped me with a down payment for my house. Story 11. I am a bus shuttle driver earning about $52,000 per year. I was unemployed for 4 months and have no idea how I managed to make ends meet during that time due to living in a high cost of living area. However, having rent well below the median and receiving food assistance helped me get through it. My previous job paid $70,000 a year, and I can already tell that this job will require much tighter budgeting than the previous one. Story 12. I am a doctor. I earn approximately $400,000 per year. My husband earns approximately $120,000 per year in his job. We are in our early 40s with no children, so our living expenses are not too high. Most of our money goes toward aggressive retirement savings. Story 13. 25 million area manager at Amazon warehouse manager, making around $70,000 a year plus restricted stock units. Renting a room in a house for approximately $800 a month, including utilities, in California with another roommate and landlords. No debt except low-interest student loans. Started investing 40% into 401k earlier this year and maxed Roth individual retirement account for the last couple of years. Story 14. Nothing. I have been looking for a job since 2023 after being laid off, and I just feel gone. Wish me luck. Story 15. What do you do for a living? As little as possible. I am a project manager. How much do you make? It depends on how much I work. I am paid per day. Potential to make 139,000 euros a year before tax. Realistically, about 100,000 euros before tax because I work 4 days a week most weeks. How do you afford to live? I get by. We are a one-income family, thankfully. The mortgage is lower than rental costs, and I live in rural Ireland, so property value is also low. The property was purchased over 10 years ago. While that sounds like living the dream, I have 2 children with disabilities who require extensive therapy. I spend about 1,000 euros a month on therapy for them, not including listening devices, travel costs, and so on. I am up at 5 a.m. every day. I start work at 6 a.m., work until 8 a.m., take the kids to school, and get back to work at 10 a.m. I work until 12 p.m., collect the kids from school, and am home by 2 p.m. I work until about 4:30 p.m. I spend a few hours with the kids and go back to work at 7:30 p.m. for an hour or two. One day a week, I drive to Dublin 2 hours each way for a 30-minute therapy session for the kids. Another day, we leave at 8 a.m., travel an hour, attend back-to-back 1-hour therapy sessions until 12 p.m. So I try to get work calls out of the way if I can. I am home by 1 p.m. and leave again by 2:30 p.m., drive another hour for another 1-hour therapy session, and am back home again around 4:30 or 5 p.m. Any benefits like disability child allowance, incapacitated child grants, and children's allowance are put into a savings account for the kids so they have money when they are 18. I also drive a 15-year-old car that I spend too much on maintaining instead of just replacing it. At the end of each month, I have very little in my bank account and little or no savings for my partner and me. Story 16. I work part-time at a cafe and do freelance work online when I feel like it. I don't make much, to be honest, but I live with my family, so I have no rent. I just budget carefully. Story 17. Nurse, $96,000 a year without overtime. I afford life because I am single with no children and no plans for children. This is not a typical wage for nurses. Thank the union and also being in a high cost of living area. Story 18. I am 34 years old from rural China, with an elementary school education. I currently work as an engineer in the manufacturing industry. It is a self-taught career, and I earn an annual salary of 120,000 renminbi after tax. I lost my arm when I was 17 years old, but I am still proficient with computers and SolidWorks. I insist on cooking my own meals every day, which takes a lot of energy and time to make a good Chinese meal. I am currently single, and I appreciate the extra alone time for reading and enjoying my favorite philosophical musings. Story 19. I am a dental hygienist in a mid-sized city and make around $68,000 annually. Living alone means my rent consumes about 40% of my income, but I have become strategic about meal prepping and shopping sales. Story 20. I was a firefighter in the United States, making $45,000 a year. Unfortunately, all of my money went to rent and other bills, so I packed up my belongings and moved to New Zealand. Now I live in a van while surfing and traveling, working for money along the way. I plan on returning to a more structured life eventually. Story 21. I am a power grid operator and make close to $200,000 a year. My wife is an accounting manager, and she makes $160,000 a year. We also own property that generates about $30,000 a year. How people afford to live is a question we ask ourselves often. We have very left-wing political views. My wife is an immigrant. The only politician I have ever donated significant money to is Bernie Sanders. I do not understand why some poor people vote for Republicans, but everyone makes their own choices. Edit. By the way, we are commercial landlords. This might matter. Our tenants are business owners, not people just trying to live. We are not those types of landlords. Story 22. I am a pet sitter. I make more money than I ever have in my corporate jobs, yet I still cannot afford insurance or housing. I live with my parents at 40 years old. I do not know what to do or how anyone is getting by. Story 23. I am a personal assistant to a real estate agent. I earn 54,000 Australian dollars. I struggle, especially seeing those I work for earning approximately $300,000 or more. Story 24. I am a clinical pharmacist at a level 1 trauma center, earning approximately $210,000 per year. My wife works part-time at the same hospital in outpatient care, bringing home $160,000 per year. We currently have no children but are trying for our first. Story 25. Not sure if you are a bot or someone fishing for information, judging by your username and post history containing only this post and a handful of comments, and the date of your account creation. I do not know. I am not giving you that information, and I urge others to consider that as well. Story 26. I am a multi-unit supervisor in the quick service restaurant space and make $135,000 a year. My job is essentially budgeting for multiple stores, so budgeting for my personal life is easy. Story 27. Software engineer, $34,000 after taxes. Barely is the answer to the last one. Paying off our home, putting money into savings, traveling once or twice a year. Hobbies are all about staying home and enjoying ourselves. Aside from the traveling, it is not American programming money, but then again, the house I live in did not cost over $50,000 either. It will be paid off in a few years, and all that extra cash is going to more nerd activities. Story 28. I am 41 years old and an emergency room nurse. I make about $70 per hour, which would be about $140,000 a year. 1/3 of this income is tax-free because of how my contract is worded. My wife and I usually only work 3 months a year because we prefer to spend the rest of the year sailing on our boat. My wife is an operating room nurse and makes slightly more. Story 29. I was the chief executive officer of a consulting firm for 20 years. I started as a senior consultant with a salary of $75,000. After 5 years, I was promoted to chief executive officer, and my salary increased to $250,000. I am retired now. Story 30. Software developer. Last year, between my salary and interest from my high-yield savings account, I finally broke the $200,000 barrier. Story 31. Respiratory therapist earns $97,000 in a good year, $65,000 in a bad year. My wife is a nurse and makes a little more. That helps. We have a house and 2 children. We still live just about paycheck to paycheck. Story 32. 220,000. Software developer with 25 years of experience and a master's degree. Located in Charleston. If I had not purchased my current house before the recent market boom in this area, I do not know if I would still buy it under the current terms with my income. My neighbor owns the sister house to mine, and their mortgage is $7,000 per month. My mind is completely blown. Story 33. I am in technology sales and my wife works in product. We earn approximately $240,000 combined. It does not really feel like we are making a good amount of money. We never have enough to comfortably vacation and never even consider getting a fancy car or a bigger house. However, I remind myself that we are putting a good portion into retirement and college funds for the children, and we have an emergency fund. We are much luckier than many others. Story 34. All these boring, generic answers. I am unemployed. I receive about $360 every 2 weeks. I get another $300 a month in food assistance. How do I survive? I keep an eye on my grandmother whose mind is declining, and in return, I get to stay rent-free. I also have a girlfriend who feeds and houses me whenever I visit. Story 35. I work in technology and earn $150,000 per year. Honestly, I mostly just send emails and attend meetings. I am not passionate about my work at all. I pay approximately $2,000 in rent in Manhattan with 2 other roommates whom I adore. I am generally frugal, travel a lot because I manage my money well, and have a pretty fun life. I do not have many bills, I invest, and I am good at saving. Story 36. I make $30,000 as a full-time refugee resettlement case manager in the United States. There is not a lot of demand for that right now, which is why I picked up a part-time job at a church working in children's ministries. It pays another $20,000 and requires only 20 more hours per week. It will be helpful if, or more likely when, the former president throws another tantrum in our direction. My wife is a college admissions counselor. She makes $40,000. We have a house, but only because my parents sold theirs, bought a boat to live on, and decided they should probably still have a home base, so they helped us cover the down payment. The house is 100 years old, and if you can think of something that needs fixing, it needs it. We ask ourselves all the time how people afford to live. It is one of the things I help the new people here learn how to do for my job. Dealing with money is one of our biggest continual discussion points. Story 37. About 50,000 euros after taxes at 24. I can save 1,500 euros per month and still afford everything I want. Honestly, it's pretty good, though the work is unpleasant. With this pay, I am in the top 9% of income earners in my country, Germany. I am a dairy technologist journeyman working a 3-shift system, including holidays and weekends. Story 38. Oil hauler, anywhere from $80,000 to $180,000, and I live in a recreational vehicle. I work no less than 12 hours a day and sometimes up to 16. Story 39. Software engineering mid-level leader, $165,000 base salary. Lower cost of living and medium cost of living area. 1 car for the family. I work 100% remote. I have saved, gotten lucky, and completed a lot of house projects. My wife also works. Story 40. $62,000 in manufacturing. Living in a low cost of living area is the only way I get by. I have been doing it for years, and there is basically nowhere for me to advance from here. I really hurt myself by not going to college, and I regret it all the time. I get small, approximately 3% raises almost every year, but with inflation over the last few years, I have basically dropped 10% or so in pay. It is frustrating. I am not sure that I will even get a 3% raise next year. They might start giving me lump sum payments because I am already at the top. So far, the only saving grace is that I have managed to put enough into retirement to be able to retire by age 64 and maybe 63. Story 41. I am retired with a monthly passive income of $2,250. I could not afford to live on that, so I had to move to another country to make it work. Story 42. I am a medical technician. I earn 65,000 euros in Germany before taxes. With that income, I can afford a comfortable life, but I cannot even hope to own a house. Story 43. I am a respiratory therapist earning about $75,000 with no overtime. My husband, an engineer, makes twice my salary. We live in a high cost of living area with 2 children, a dog, and a cat. Story 44. Part-time test proctor and recently a DoorDash driver. Last year, I earned $20,000. I can barely afford to live. Story 45. I am an elevator mechanic and earn $130,000 before any overtime. My wife is a social worker, but she is not working at the moment because we just had a child. We live in a lower cost of living area, and even then, everything still seems expensive. We are fortunate and have enough to live decently. That said, I do not see us having more than 1 child, as the cost is certainly a significant factor. Story 46. 75,000. Three-dimensional art generalist. I have the cheapest one-bedroom apartment I could find that is 5 minutes from work, which really helps save money so I can eventually buy some land and build a house. Story 47. I am a software developer but work at a very poor place, so I only make $90,000 per year. Our deductions are so high that friends of mine in the same salary bracket take home hundreds more per paycheck and have better benefits than I do. Aside from monthly rent and a low-cost vehicle lease, I am debt-free with a perfect credit score. I do not mismanage my money. I just do not have enough of it when rent and vehicle payments alone take almost half of my take-home pay. Food expenses here are also very high despite living in the Rust Belt. I firmly believe that you have to make a minimum of 6 figures these days to be remotely comfortable. Story 48. I work on aircraft turbines in the rework department. I cut and remove all the defective parts from the components when they come out of the casting. When a turbine comes out of a casting, the metal sometimes does not fill in all the required areas. I cut out the defective sections so they can be filled with tungsten inert gas weld. After that, I grind the weld down and blend it. I make $30 an hour for 40 hours, $45 for Saturday overtime, and $60 for Sunday. Seems like enough, but it is not. I work 2, 3, or 4 weekends a month and try to work 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday when I do work. The 40 hours is barely enough to live on. The overtime is for extra money. Being 51 years old, a significant portion of my earnings goes into my 401k. Story 49. Chemist. I make $65,000. I live with my parent who pays all bills and siblings. I have other plans in progress. My mother makes a huge financial sacrifice so I can save enough for a down payment on a house. By the end of the summer, we will be living in my home, and I will take over paying the mortgage. Story 50. I am a retail worker. I make minimum wage and get paid every 2 weeks. I roughly earn 33 Australian dollars an hour. Do I make enough to live on my own? No, I still live with my parents. Yes, I am saving to buy my own house. Yes, I am single, so I have no extra income. Story 51. Electrical consulting managing engineer for buildings, $34,000 to $165,000. It is a great job, but can be very stressful. My name is on a lot of documents, and I can be held liable if I make a significant mistake. Story 52. I work in sales operations earning $99,000 a year. I live in an undesirable area and got a great deal on my house. I just paid off my mortgage and now I am trying to pay off other debt and save for renovations. Story 53. I own a computer repair business with 2 physical locations. I make $25 per hour. My wife, son, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I am looking to sell the business and get a job because I am tired of the extra stress. Story 54. I am a chef in Norway. I earn $52,000 a year before taxes. I pay $1,300 per month in rent. Despite food prices steadily increasing, I live a comfortable life without having to worry about my finances. Story 55. I make $74,000 as a teacher. I live in Southern California. My husband makes $160,000. I obviously would not be a homeowner here without him. Story 56. Airport job, customer service, gate manager, check-in desk. After taxes, I make approximately $43,000 to $46,000 US a year in Europe. I am barely making it as a single person. Living in my city is very expensive. Story 57. I work as a maintenance intern at a school, and I make $18 an hour. It is part-time. I currently work 6 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and I get paid bi-weekly. I live with my aunt and mom. I have 1 more month left of school, so I can work full-time soon. Story 58. I am retired. I make more than enough to cover my expenses. I can afford to live a happy life because I worked very hard, sometimes holding multiple jobs, saved a portion of every paycheck, and invested my money wisely. Story 59. 41-year-old married woman with 4 children, 3 grown and moved out, 1 at home. Human rights advocate working for the African Union government in a country that still has human rights. I earn $144,500 plus 12.5% superannuation retirement benefits on top. My husband is a mathematics and physics teacher making just over $100,000 plus 12.5% superannuation. We live comfortably with a good amount of savings in an offset account. We are not party types and we still have a 12-year-old at home. We do not go out much as we are homebodies. We do not drink or smoke. Our vices are secondhand dresses for me and video games for my son and husband. My son attends private school, but not the excessively expensive ones. We own our home and have 2 large dogs. We bought our vehicles outright and pay our credit card in full every month, only using it for points. Our biggest expense outside of the mortgage is likely all the medications I take. If we lived in the United States, we would be bankrupt. We also run a side business reselling video games, merchandise, and collectibles. Story 60. Instrument and Programmable Logic Controller Technician. Currently working at a steel mill earning approximately $80,000 per year. House payment is $2,900 per month. Both cars, a Tesla Model 3 and a Tesla Model Y, are paid off. Planning to purchase a new Tesla Model 3 long range soon to replace the standard Range Plus. My wife is a registered nurse and earns approximately $90,000 per year. Once our second house in Texas sells, a situation that previously caused us a loss of $150,000, we will pay down our credit card debt and then rebuild our retirement savings. After that, we will focus on paying down the house. We are managing financially, and I am very good at planning. I encouraged my wife to become a registered nurse instead of remaining a licensed practical nurse. Story 61. What do you do for a living? Software engineer. How much do you make? $600,000. How do you afford to live? Very easily. I make great money. I get that. But when taxes take away 40%, a 1,700 square foot home in a good school district costs $2 million, and you can lose your job any day, potentially seeing a huge downturn in the computer science job market, which could leave you unemployed for a long time only to get a job that pays 1/3. I can't quite commit to luxury daily expenses just yet. But what it does mean is that I can go to the dollar store and act like I'm Bill Gates on a high-energy shopping spree. Story 62. Supervise a fleet of 114 tractor-trailer operators and their equipment. $121,000. Precariously. The fleet I supervise changes according to which half of the state I am required to manage, but this number reflects the total in rotation. Story 63. High school mathematics and science teacher in Shanghai, China. I earn around the equivalent of $75,000 per year before taxes. This is more than enough to live comfortably here since I do not need a car, and the cost of living in Shanghai, excluding housing, can be quite affordable if you manage it well. Story 64. I day trade stock options after 20 years in development operations at an internet service provider. I make about $60,000 per year. I spend carefully, but I do not have a boss. Story 65. Night shift stocking position paying $18 per hour. Dual income household. My spouse earns about $22 per hour. We bought a house right before the interest rate increased and have no children. We also live in a rural area, not near a major city. Edit. Our combined gross income is about $83,000 per year. A large portion goes towards bills and debt. After federal, state, and local taxes in my area, the net income is about $69,000. Story 66. Nothing. 1,200 euros a month after taxes. I lost my job where I made around 3,400 euros after taxes. The unemployment benefits in my country pay me 1,200 euros a month. Let's just say it has been interesting. Story 67. I work on airplanes. My job covered the cost of obtaining my power plant license, as well as paying me to attend the classes. I make around $55,000 a year as a technician one. With rising prices, things are starting to get tight, but I can afford my apartment and bills well enough. If things get tighter, I can work on airplane engines on my own time and use my license, which my work paid for, to sign off the work. Story 68. 170,000 gross. Net about 150,000 after taxes. I am not exceptionally talented, but I am definitely both overqualified and overpaid for my job. Story 69. I make $58,000 a year as a mid-level fleet diesel technician. I am in Middle Tennessee. It is rough, but I manage somehow. I usually do side work when I need extra money, but lately, that has been drying up as people simply cannot afford to fix things as much anymore. Luckily, I do not have a car payment anymore and have decent enough cars to get me, my wife, and my child around. We have another child on the way. I do not know how I am going to do it, but we have made it through tough times before. I will figure it out. Story 70. I did not go to college. I make over $100,000 as a union electrician. I am able to live comfortably because I met someone who makes the same amount in their field. Story 71. Make between $40,000 and $90,000 a year. Contract forestry, exploration, general labor, utility work. Get paid between $18 and $80 per hour depending on the job. The best paid work usually lasts only 2 months. I afford to live by not renting. Almost all of my jobs provide housing or have a camp where I can set up my own tent. I become homeless when unemployed. I could get a place, but I do not want to pay rent for a place I can only live in for 3 months a year. This is also why I take low-paying jobs. They provide housing when more profitable jobs are not available. Half of these jobs also provide food. Story 72. I am an assistant manager at a convenience store. I make a little under $30,000 a year. How do I afford to live? That is an excellent question. I basically inherited my house from my father. My mother is still alive. She does not live with me but helps me with the bills occasionally. Recently, I had to have an electrician come out. Insurance covered the costs, but unfortunately, I had to replace all the food in my fridge and freezer. She helped me a bit there since that was about 90% of my food. I bike to work pretty much every day. Not by choice, my car broke down a while back, and an electric bike was much cheaper than a car, including general upkeep and maintenance. I do not have to register it or buy gas, so that is definitely nice. I also live in a fairly poor state in a fairly small town, so housing in general is not horrible. I have enough for all my bills and groceries almost every month, and usually a couple $100 left over. What has helped me the most, though, is paying some stuff off and my mortgage going down. My father died before it was fully paid off. All in all, not horrible. I would definitely like to have a bit more money, but I am comfortable. Story 73. I am a video editor and I make around $2,500 a month. It is not a huge amount, but I manage by freelancing consistently, budgeting carefully, and working with clients from different countries to keep things steady. Story 74. Support coordinator. Earning $75,000 a year using salary sacrifice and living alone in a small unit rented through my workplace. No bills other than car loan, car insurance, internet, and mobile phone. I do not drink alcohol or smoke and only eat out when attending a restaurant event with work or friends. I rarely buy takeaway unless I am sick. I limit myself to 2 cafe cappuccinos per week, usually saved for weekends when socializing with friends after CrossFit. I taught myself how to do my own eyebrow waxing and tinting of eyebrows and lashes. I also taught myself how to trim my hair. I cook and prepare all my meals and snacks. Story 75. I work for a tourism company in Alaska. I make $17 an hour and can afford to live because the company pays for my apartment and my car, except for gas. I would be struggling otherwise. Story 76. Pressure truck operator. Still figuring out the financial aspects. Recently changed jobs from driving tankers. Probably $60,000? I do not know yet. Story 77. Most of my work experience is as a personal trainer, but right now I am working at a pizzeria. I make about $40,000 a year and live with my parents. I need to save some money before I can afford a place. Story 78. About 2,000 euros after taxes. Through a little-known approach called living with my parents at 28, I managed to save around 1,600 euros a month. Story 79. I make software for airplanes so they can fly autonomously. I earn $70,000 after taxes. I live in California but have a house in Texas, so I save aggressively to afford two households. Story 80. I am a financial advisor, investment manager, and armchair psychotherapist. I will make just under $600,000 this year. I live in a low cost of living area. Story 81. I am a trade shows project and operations specialist. I founded my own company with my partner 2 months ago, so I cannot say how much I earn yet since I have not earned any income. Story 82. Ski lift operator in France. Average about 2,000 euros a month. Biggest expenses are food and rent. I'm not really saving, but I have a nest egg. Without my savings, I would be more worried about my future, but there is progression and my wage will increase. If I lose my apartment where I live alone, I will likely have to share a place with others, as my current rent is about half that of the average. I am hoping my landlord, who is an older lady, doesn't have children. Perhaps I could get a deal from her to buy the place, but 36 square meters would cost about 350,000 euros on a bad day. Story 83. I do procurement, curation, and containment for the Wes Anderson taxidermy collection. The work requires discretion, is challenging, and sometimes physical, with long hours and a substantial amount of travel, sometimes in rugged terrain and inclement weather. However, I am paid well and the uniforms are very stylish. Story 84. I have my own cleaning business. My husband and I started it together, and he still helps from time to time. When I started, all my clients were in their 80s on very fixed incomes and really needed help. I still have several clients like this and will continue to find more. They can't afford a cleaner. I make sure they can afford me. I do too much, take too long, and chat with them the entire time. I know they genuinely look forward to seeing us. It feels good. It was really rough financially for a while, but it was worth it. Last year, I got so incredibly lucky I still can't believe it. I talked to a complete stranger and walked away 15 minutes later with a phone number. Now I have 3 excellent weekly clients. That random encounter changed my whole world. I am also an independent companion. Right now, that means housekeeper and dog sitter since the puppy's mom passed a few months ago. I make enough to scrape by and can treat myself every now and then. I can afford to live because my husband has a full-time job. Story 85. I do shopping and delivery for a few different applications. I make pretty good money, around $60,000 to $75,000 depending on the workload. The biggest expense is my car, but I do my own oil changes. I live in a rural area where rent is cheap, and I keep my day-to-day expenses relatively low. My other income source is in the process of being built, dividend income. After this year, I should have about $100,000 invested. Ideally, in a few years, my dividend income will completely offset my work income, and I can decide what I want to do from there. I also save a lot of money on the side and have it sitting in bond companies and high-yield savings. So yes, ideally I can stop the gig work, decide if I want to move to a different area, maybe buy a house, and choose to work or not in a few years. Can be done, just sometimes not in the ways we expect. Story 86. Poker professional. Peaked at $250,000 per year, $150 per hour. Invested and semi-retired now. Rent is $1,000. Insurance is $500. Utilities are $150. There are no other bills. Story 87. I am a digital artist and designer, creating bottle tags and product tags for major companies around. I make almost $3,000 to $5,000 per month, and I am only 21 years old. It is a great start in life, I think. Working from home is something special nowadays. Story 88. I am a Doctor of Philosophy student in the United Kingdom. I receive a tax-free stipend of £22,000 plus an additional £10,000 from part-time work. Surprisingly, I earn more than anyone in my group of friends. Story 89. I work as a data center security guard earning around $63,000 per year. I make a minimum of $1,000 monthly from trading short-term stocks. My cost of living is very low since I bought my condominium in 2015. I contribute at least $2,300 monthly to my retirement accounts. I have no debt other than my mortgage. My student loans were forgiven through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which was a major win for me. Story 90. Options trader. Have been doing it for 7 years and profitable for the last 4 years. Went back to school in January 2024 for electrical engineering as a plan B. So far have realized around $70,000 from trading this year. Story 91. I am a cook for the elderly in long-term care. We live in the Midwest and are dual income, no kids. I make $42,500 per year. My husband makes more and works in a meat processing factory. We contribute to our retirement accounts. We have debt, but we are working to own our own house. We also have 2 cars, cell phones, and utilities. We eat out once a week and pay for extras like cable television, Netflix, Sirius XM radio, and specialty license plates for both vehicles. I save money when I want tattoos, and my husband collects Lego sets. We have 2 cats also. Story 92. Furnace operator and crane driver making around $90,000 a year, working 4 days on and 4 days off. We live in one of the more affordable areas of New Zealand, so we manage on my income as a family of 4, as my partner is a stay-at-home mom. We debated whether or not she would return to work but concluded that at least 80% of her pay would go to childcare, and it is better for our son to be raised by his parents rather than strangers. We do not live a lavish life, but we get by comfortably. Story 93. I am a licensed healthcare worker who manages a laboratory with 51 employees. They all report directly to me. I earn $140,000 per year and have very low living expenses. I carry no credit card debt. I live in California and pay $1,488 per month for my mortgage on a 15-year note. My home will be paid off before I retire. I live within my means in all areas of my life. Until November 2023, I drove a 12-year-old Hyundai Accent, an entry-level car. I traded it in for a 2024 Honda Civic, also an entry-level car. Story 94. I am a 31-year-old nurse practitioner earning $160,000. I live in a high cost of living area. I love what I do. I do not work overtime and I live well below my means. I use coupons, earn points, and have many investments and certificates of deposit which I use as fun money. I currently have no debt and own my car outright. Being single, having no children, and living with my mother helps a lot because I do not spend money on rent. I am saving to buy a house and aim to pay 50 to 75% of the cost as a down payment. I am almost there. Story 95. Software developer here making about $85,000. Sounds good on paper until you realize I live in Seattle, where a studio apartment costs more than my first car. I basically live off ramen and hope my roommates do not harm me in my sleep. Story 96. Late 20s and married, earning $300,000 to $330,000 annually depending on bonuses. We are science advisors in law. We live in a very high cost of living area with no children. Rent is split between 2 incomes and is not a big deal. We keep grocery bills low and invest aggressively. All other spending money goes to our rather expensive cat and the indulgent hobbies we could not afford in graduate school. Story 97. I control trains. I earn about 30% above the average wage in my country. I live a reasonable life. I don't spend a lot while I am working since I work 12-hour shifts and I don't have children. Story 98. I am a 35-year-old male living in a high cost of living area. I work as an operations manager with a base salary of $105,000 plus a 10% on-target earnings bonus. I bought my first home at 25 years old in Phoenix, and that market increased significantly. I sold it and put 40% down on a condominium in the city where I currently live. I have no debt. I contribute 15% of my income per year towards retirement, and my company matches an additional 6% dollar for dollar. I am kind of starting over from scratch. In the last 4 years, I was laid off twice, experienced a medical emergency without health insurance, and went through a divorce. Currently, I have $50,000 in retirement savings. Story 99. I own a couple of companies that generate passive income. Besides that, I dabble in the markets. I have been day trading for about 10 years. but I am only 29. I earn roughly $10,000 or more per month, though it fluctuates at times. My companies bring in more than I pay out. Fortunately, I live in a flexible area for my income, so unless I am being reckless, it is usually not an issue. Story 100. I am a chemical operator in the semiconductor industry. I earn $65,000 before taxes and live with my parents. I am 29 years old but spent most of my 20s making poor financial decisions, such as buying a new car, partying, and engaging in various distractions. Life is not too bad, and I am working toward advancing my career. It is a long process with slow growth opportunities, but I enjoy what I do. Story 101, graphic artist. I get paid minimum wage to do graphic design, video editing, and production work. My boss has not paid me for almost a month. He has been withholding my salary since April and only gives it to me more than a month later. I am forced to take loans just to provide for my family. Now my loans are 2 days overdue because he is holding on to my previous and latest salary, only giving me part of it so I have enough for transportation to go to the office. Story 102. I work in manufacturing and recently moved into management. I make a base salary of $125,000 with a variable bonus up to $140,000. I live in a major city or large metropolitan area. Earning more than the median income definitely helps. I am also fortunate to have bought a house in 2019. I could not afford the same house if I purchased today. I prioritize saving and investing first and drive older cars. Summary: good income, luck, and not needing to buy a new car or house as my income increased. Story 103. I have worked in a box factory for the last 6 months. Depending on my role per shift, my pay varies. General labor is $22.67 per hour, and machine assistant is $26.52 per hour. I am the sole income earner for myself and my wife. We have no children and no pets. We live in an apartment that currently charges $840 per month, increasing to around $920 in December. My wife does not have a job because she moved to Canada from Kenya 2 years ago to be with me. She received her work permit in February but has not found employment yet. We have been losing money by paying a lawyer double the initial quote to assist with her citizenship application. I just received my income tax return yesterday and need to deposit the check with a teller because a machine will not accept it. The tax refund will double my bank account to over $10,000, which will keep us afloat for months. However, my wife is already considering expenses like Netflix, even though my car needs repairs and my credit card has over $3,000 in charges from the lawyer that need to be paid off. I had $18,000 in my bank account before marrying her and $12,000 when she arrived. I sent her money regularly and paid for her flight here. At its lowest, my bank account reached $4,000 over the past 2 years. I regret meeting this woman. We have not consummated our marriage because she fears pregnancy. Her health would even be better if she had not come here. She received a vaccine injection to volunteer at the hospital but hit a nerve or something. For the past year and a half, her arm has been sore. I am writing this as we sit in the emergency room because she could not speak this morning due to losing her breath from spreading pain from her arm to her chest. Story 104. I am Overlord Altramos, ruler of Earth. I was a metamagical artificer, and I continue my quest from before the forest raccoon granted me overlordship. The quest to identify and assemble the epistemological primes into the knowledge core and use it to finally defeat the Omnarch. I have yet to establish my domain financially. While I work on establishing my domain politically, I offer my services as an artificer to a local manufactory, from which I collect a fee of 17 of the local currency per hour, with a percentage donation given to local warlords. It is not enough. It is nearly impossible to find a decent source of funds in this era. In eras past, during my early adventuring days, I would have come into a town, repaired some things that were thought to be forever broken, and I would have had a meal and a warm place to sleep for the night. In the past few hundred years, my subjects, in my absence, have allowed the parasites among you to claim power over you, as if they have the right like I do. You have allowed my land, minerals, cities, tools, and cattle, which I gracefully bestowed upon the people in common so that you might be mutually prosperous, to be divided up among the worst among you. Now you grovel and beg at their feet instead of mine. Disgrace to you. You will be punished. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.